Welcome to the Cash Flow Couple Podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams, alongside my husband, John Williams. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's Saturday.
It is.
I didn't even realize it was Saturday today.
Well, you know, we work every day, so I don't have any idea what day of the week it is.
That is true.
Ever.
And it's interesting. I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about it. It's kind of like when you're an entrepreneur, you stop having that like Monday through Friday, and then you're like free on the weekend, and it's just all blends together. You know what I mean? It
does. It all blends together. The only day of the week that I really know that it is Tuesday, because that's trash day.
Yes, that's right. So there are certain days we still have to do things, for sure.
And you know, once the kids go back to school, it'll be...
It does, yeah. When they're in school, it provides kind of a calendar,
yeah,
so to speak. So, but anyway, so we were sitting out here, and Wendy's like, "Man, we should be making this podcast."
Well, you were having a very good conversation, and
we were having a good conversation,
and
maybe I was talking at you. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, you were educating me on what you were doing, and I thought it was really interesting, and I thought that other people would benefit from this knowledge as well. So that's why I said, you know, we should really be turning this into a podcast. Other people would appreciate this knowledge.
Yeah, you're right. And that's kind of what we talked about too, is like a lot of times we just sit around in the garage, right? And we have these discussions, and we're like, man, we should have recorded that. That would have been a great podcast. You know, somebody could have gotten something out of that. Or whatever.
We've been saying that for months.
I know.
We finally did it.
So tonight I was talking. So what I was doing was for the short-term rental business, I was analyzing some data. So we have data that we get from primarily, I'm getting this from SmartBnB, which is really our messaging software.
That's what I thought. That's why it was interesting to me that you were getting that kind of data from SmartBnB. I thought it was just messaging, but it's not.
It's not. So the cool thing about SmartBnB is so they have API connections. You know what that is?
No, I have no idea.
So it means they're directly connected to Airbnb and HomeAway.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's the two that they directly connect to.
Right. Just Airbnb and HomeAway. Now, does that include Vrbo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So HomeAway is Vrbo, HomeAway,
because they're owned by the same company.
Yeah, all that. But those are the two that they currently connect to. But we use them for primarily our automated messaging. Like somebody books and they get a message. And there's also, I won't go into SmartBnB, but it's a great tool for taking kind of the messaging, a lot of it off of your plate anyway. You know, somebody asks a very specific question, you kind of a human has to answer it, but all that stuff that you tend to have to do every time, like here's our address, here's your door code, here's, you know, your check-in and check-out times, here's the dates you're staying, all that kind of thing. And then, you know, the checkout instructions, you know, hey, hope you had a great stay. You know, here's your checkout instructions. It automates that part of it. So at least we're not having to do that every time for every reservation. So it's a very valuable tool, and it's not that expensive for what it is, for sure. But anyway, because they have those direct connections to Airbnb specifically and HomeAway specifically, it also means that they have access to all the other stuff too, like who stayed, how many people, how many days, when did they book versus when did they stay, and all that kind of thing. And they provide that as kind of just a perk. It's part of their metrics package.
Oh, so that's really cool. So not only does it help with automating messaging, but it also collects all that data for you as well.
It does. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yes. But realize that, you know, we talk about this a lot, your own brand. Even the last episode, we were talking about getting away from the platforms, right? So you gotta take that with what it is, you're only getting data for the connections that they have.
So just Airbnb and HomeAway right now.
Yeah, and that's the messaging part, and realize that, and this may change at some point, but currently their metrics, meaning their data about how many nights stayed, your RevPAR,
What's RevPAR?
RevPAR is revenue per available room.
Revenue per available room?
Yes. So these are the kind of metrics we look at, and that's hospitality lingo for, these are kind of things they look for. So if you own a hotel, RevPAR is like a really good metric that you're looking at. You know, what is your revenue per available room? Meaning I have 100 rooms, I made a certain amount of money. What's the revenue per available room that I had?
Okay. I get it.
Right. And then there's also, you know, how, you know, what's my average night stay? What's my booking lead time?
Like how far in advance they
like
book
how far
versus
in advance
how
does somebody
far
book versus how many
stay?
nights did they stay?
Uh-huh.
Type data.
Right.
And so that's what I was looking at today, because we're currently in a mode where we're taking on a new unit here August 1st. So this is the end of July. And we were looking at, hey, we're taking on a new unit August 1st. And we've kind of, at this point, we've been so focused on acquiring new units. And then we realized that, oh, wow, it takes a while for these to start generating revenue, especially what we're doing houses. And we had that discussion. We kind of start over every time, but it takes a while to get them online and get them performing each one. So like the ones we did early on perform every month, but the ones we've added in the last month or two, or even like this new one, we know that it's going to take a while for it to start paying for itself.
Yeah, that realization in and of itself was like an aha moment for us.
Well, it is, because there's a certain amount of capital available, and you have to build out the units. And so profitability, that's what's happened to us over this past, is it 9 months now?
10.
That we actually like turned this into a business?
10 months.
10 months. That we started like, hey, we need to add more units. It's not just the basement anymore. And let's turn this into a business. But the problem is, if you're going to be adding one every month or two, and your lag time to have one actually perform is longer than that, then you start to get into this space where we're losing money overall, even though individual units are performing, but the newest ones you've added
haven't called
are still
up
ramping up, right?
Right.
And so they kind of drag down the whole
business.
And that's probably not as much of a problem if you had 100 of them and you added 2, because you only got 2 dragging you down at that point. But in our case, this will be our 7th, and we've kind of overrun it to where we've got like 3 dragging us down right now.
Right.
Well, we have 2, and then we have the one that's going to be, and we know it's going to be a drag for a month or 2.
Yeah.
Or 3, right? And so now it becomes like, now it's a strain on the entire business, because we've kind of, it's that whole like grow too fast thing.
Yep, I think that's what it is.
But we didn't know we were doing that
until
we knew.
Right. Until about a month ago.
Yeah. So now we know. And so the thing is, what I was looking at, because we were talking about this earlier, is like, okay, this last one we got, we need to like stop and pause and get everything up to par and then move on. You know, instead of adding another one next month and the next month, right?
Right, because that's basically what we've been doing. We've been so focused. I know at least I have, that we had a goal at the beginning of the year to get 10 units by the end of the year.
Yes.
So and that's my job. That's my role in the company.
Yes, your acquisitions,
right? Yes. So I'm the one that goes out and looks for new units where we want them to be, because we know our customer type, and we know where we need to be, and we know what we're looking for. So I went out and found them, and I negotiated the lease and talked to the landlords, and I was very focused. I was so focused on acquiring these 10 units that I didn't think about, getting the units that we have up and running and actually making money. I just, that's all you, right?
Well, yeah. And that was the thing. We had that discussion like a couple of months ago, actually.
Yeah. Or maybe, John's like, slow down.
I want to say it was 2 months ago, but it may have been like last month, because we had that discussion too. It was like, time seems like it's all out of skew, right? You don't really know how long ago that was, but I want to say it was last month or the month before. But I was talking, so in my family, the story.
This is a good story. Yes, tell it.
and it very much reminded me of that. So there's this family story where it was my mom and my dad, and her dad actually was the minister of a church. Okay. And this was during Christmas time. So it's a typical, smaller church, and they have the stained glass windows all along the side of the, what do you call that? Like the worship hall, or the, the sanctuary. And in each window, it was decorated for Christmas, and they had, like a little wreath with like a candle in the middle.
And the candles were probably lit.
Yeah, like real candles, like you light them, right? And they came in a little late to the service, and Mom had bought this new coat, like this nice new coat. Because it's December time, it's cold, right? So you wear a coat. But because her dad was the minister, they didn't sit in the back on the back row. They come up to the front.
Oh, that's their normal seat. They always sit in the same spot.
Yes, but it's a typical church. Like, they had the aisle down the middle, right? But then they have the aisles along the side. And because they came in late, they didn't want to go down the middle because the service had already started and all that kind of thing. So they went down the side.
Right.
And Mom had bought this new coat that she was very proud of, and it looked great. And she walks in, and as they come down the side, because they're not coming down the middle, she notices that people are looking at her and kind of giving her the nod and the smile. She's like, this coat is like awesome.
So she thinks everybody's looking at her coat.
Yes. And she's like, this is a great coat. I'm, getting all this positive affirmation about it. And they get up to the front because they're going to sit in the front row, and they have their seat, and she sits down, and my dad's following her, and he sits down, and she looks over, and he goes, whew, and like brushes some sweat off his brow. Right? And she kind of looks at him like, what's your problem? And what had happened was, as they went down the sides there with the candles in her big new coat, she was knocking the candle and the placement there off of the shelf in front of the window.
So she was knocking down all the candles that were in the windows with her big coat.
And my dad, who was following her, was catching them right before they hit the floor and putting them back in the window.
Oh my God, that is such a great visual. I absolutely love it.
Right? And it was only after they got there to the front and sat down that she realized that what she thought was happening, everybody admiring her coat, was actually everybody watching my dad catch these Christmas decorations and candles that were falling out of the window from her coat. So it was coat related in her defense, but it wasn't what she thought. Right?
Oh my gosh, that's a great story.
So that very much reminded me. I thought it was very much an analogy of what was happening. Is Wendy's like going out and getting these units because we've got to get 10,
right?
And meanwhile, because we work in different areas in the business because we're a team. You know, it doesn't make sense for us to be doing the same things,
right?
Because Wendy has
different skill
sets that I don't have, and I have skill sets that she doesn't have, and so I'm here trying to, you know, analyze data and make things as profitable as they can and get reservations and, you know, speaking with guests and setting up the automation and doing all this other kind of stuff. And we had to have this conversation, and we sat down in the garage, I want to say a month ago or maybe 2. And I was kind of like,
yes, I'm pretty sure you actually did that.
I'm like, Wendy, you got to slow down, man. You're outrunning what I'm able to keep up with, and maybe it's my fault, but we got to stop. We got to stop getting more units. I know we got to get to 10 by the end of the year, but I'm not keeping up, and all I'm doing is like catching the candles, man. Right. Wendy's like knocking these off, like, hey, here's another unit.
And I thought everybody was like looking at me like, hey, look at you go.
Well, that's it.
Doing awesome, getting up all these units.
Well, like, dude, I got like 4 units this past month. I'm like, I don't know if I could catch all these candles, man. We got to have a conversation. We got to have a business meeting.
We did. We had to have a
business meeting. Which we all have all of our business meetings in the garage. And it was me saying, dude, we got to chill. And you'd already signed the lease for the next one. I'm like, this one might kill us.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now. And that's why I'm looking at data, because I need to like maximize and like, you know, be very efficient about knowing the data, like who's staying with us, how many days in advance are they booking, all this kind of thing. Right. Because that's what's going to maximize revenue, and I'm the guy catching the candles. but now we've gotten to the front of the room, and Wendy knows that I'm catching the candles, and so now we were having this discussion. So that's kind of where we are this evening. And then Wendy's like, "Hey, man, we got to make this podcast," because that's what I was doing today on a Saturday, was looking at information. So I've learned to call it information. So, because I was talking to, or actually listening to, one of our mentors this past week, and there's a big difference between data and information, right?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so data is just kind of like the raw numbers.
Right.
And then if you pull that into like a chart, or you pull that into
you manipulate it somehow.
Yeah, then it becomes information. And then as the CEOs,
that's what our job is, to interpret.
Yeah. So you have all this information, and you're like, does that matter or not?
Right.
Is it something that it's information, but is it something that's relevant? Is it something we can do anything with? And so I decided to start looking at how many days in advance are people booking our places overall. And then I broke it down by property too. And what I found was today, and this is where we kind of started this conversation of, hey, we should make this podcast. But what I found today is the vast majority of people that book our places book between 0 and 7 days, which means they book
within a week.
Within the week
of when they're going to stay. So like if they were going to stay next weekend, they would be booking it like today or tomorrow. So
yes.
Saturday or Sunday.
And I just happen to know that most of our bookings happen on a Sunday. Most of our bookings happen on weekends, period.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
Sundays
Well, that's when people are off work and they're thinking about.
Exactly. But you know what they're booking for? Next weekend.
Right.
At least the bookings we've had so far.
So that makes me wonder, is that normal? I mean, do people that are traveling only book like a week in advance?
Well, again, the data I have is Airbnb specific. So that was one of my thoughts, was that could be a platform specific behavior.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's the case.
So part of what I want to do now is go pull data that we have from other booking platforms, because we are on HomeAway and we are on Booking.com, although we don't have much data from Booking.com because we don't get many bookings from there. But HomeAway, we've started to get more.
Yeah, just within the past month or so.
Yeah, and the reason for that is I've started to do more revenue management over there. So I was always doing it on Airbnb, and by revenue management, I mean dynamic pricing.
Changing up the pricing so it changes daily.
Yeah, but it changes per date by demand.
Based on demand. Okay.
Yeah. So the fact that it changes daily is a fact, but the real part of it is that it's demand driven. So it's by date. Like if there are certain weeks during a month that a lot of people are booking properties in your area, then you can charge more. If it's a week that nobody's booking property in your area, then you can charge less. And if you're not doing that kind of dynamic pricing, if you just got like a flat fee across the board, then in the high times you're missing revenue, and the low times you're also missing revenue because you're not getting booked, and you're only getting kind of that middle. And so that's one of those things that I'm trying to do to maximize revenue for the places that we have, to kind of catch up with the candles that you're dropping. Right?
That's a good nugget right there.
I'm manipulating price, and it's not the only factor, because we talked about that before. It's what's your place like, who's the target customer, and all that kind of thing. But price is a factor. It just is. It always will be. Even for the Hilton, they charge less for less demand weeks than they do for more demand weeks, right? But they're doing that. We're doing that too. But it made me think that, part of what I've been doing is discounting our rates as dates get closer, meaning I know what my break even is for a particular night, because we talked about that too. Whether it's booked or not, it costs me a certain amount. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather it be booked than not be booked, even if I'm only breaking even, because there's value in that, because it means I didn't lose money.
I prefer to not lose money.
Well, it goes back to, that's a Warren Buffett thing, right? Rule number one is don't lose money. What's rule number two?
See rule number one.
See rule number one. Don't lose money.
Don't lose money.
So if I have to break even, I would rather break even than lose money.
Yeah.
And so my pricing strategy looks like that. Far out bookings are priced at, quote, market rate, or what I think I can get. But as it comes in closer and I'm not booked for a particular place, like this week, then I'm discounting it to the minimum, because I want to get the occupancy. I'd rather break even or lose less even, right?
Right. Sure.
Like if my per night rate, if my break even is $90 and I can book it for $85 and it's tomorrow, I'd rather do that and lose the $5 than lose $90. And that's where I'm coming from. But if I'm looking at this data as a CEO and saying that, hey, 64% of our bookings come within 7 days, then that also means that 64% of our bookings come within our most discounted rate periods.
Right.
And we were just having that discussion, is your first thought was,
well,
our prices were too high. That's what you said.
Right. Because then why did they not book a couple of weeks ago? Because our price was too high. They waited until they were going to take their chance and chances and say, okay, well, I'm just going to wait and see if the price changes a little bit. And it did. So that's when they decided to book. That was my thought process.
Really? So you think people wait and see if the price drops?
I think so.
That's a possibility. I mean, but it's all in how you interpret it, right? Because this is just information.
Right.
So I've turned data into information. I could tell you that most people book within 7 days, like the vast majority. And I can also tell you, because of the way I do pricing, that those are our cheapest rates.
So maybe people wait until the
that could be an interpretation.
Gets into their budget.
That could be another interpretation. Could be that because this is Airbnb specific, the culture on Airbnb is that people wait till the last minute to book.
That could be too, but I have a really hard time believing that a mother with 3 children is going to wait until the last minute to book a place that they're bringing the whole family to. I have a really hard time with that.
I get that, but here's another piece of data you don't know, because I did do some analysis on that as well. How many people do we typically have per night? What would you say?
Our average?
Yeah.
3.
So for a reservation of any length?
3 people.
You're right. It's 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a mother and 3 kids. That's 4. So what you just said is what it doesn't match the data that we have.
So are you saying that we are not hitting our target customer?
I don't know. I'm telling you that's what the information that I have is, and it's up to us to interpret it. What I'm telling you is that most people book within a week. And if I break it out to 2 weeks, it's like 90%. 90% of the bookings that we get, I don't think it's actually 90. It's like 86 or something, but I'm just rounding. But like, when I say vast majority, I mean like vast majority. Even within 7 days, when I broke it down by property, we had one property that was 54% of the bookings for this year, like January through end of July. 54% were within a week. And if I say, okay, how many were within 2 weeks? It goes to like 80%, 70, 80% on every property.
Huh. I'm not sure what to think about that.
And our average night stay is 3.6.
3, I was going to say 3 or 4
days. So it's between 3 and 4. And our average number of guests per reservation is about 3.
It was about 3.
And that's an average, realize. So sometimes we have 10 guests and sometimes we have 2. But obviously we have 2 more often than we have 10, because it averages out to about 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that.
I'm not either. I'm just saying that this is the data that we have. This is the information that we have. And this is the kind of discussion we were just having in the garage, that you were like, hey, we need to make this a podcast, because these are kind of the discussions we have. And I'm not sure that at the end of this, we're actually going to come up to a conclusion and say, hey, you should do this. I'm just giving you hypotheses of what I think. And there are different ways you can interpret that data. One of the ways you can interpret that is, hey, your prices are too high. Another way you can interpret that is, hey, people just don't book before 2 weeks out, and you need to not be discounting so much because you're killing your profitability. Maybe I don't need to be breaking even the last week, because that's just the culture of the platform.
Could be.
Maybe if my prices were the same as they were 30 days out, I would still get the same amount of money.
You'd still get bookings. Right.
I would actually get more money, right?
Right. Would people still...
Because everything else you have is speculation. I've given you information that's factual, but saying, hey, your prices are too high is speculation. Saying anything else than what the data is telling you. Is just speculation, right?
So, well, we should try different things.
Well, that's it. You have to kind of test it. And
right.
That's what I was getting at, is that's really the only way to figure out what exactly is going on. And it takes a while. And that's why I need to stop catching candles.
Okay. I get it. I'm hearing you. I swear. I'm not going to go get any more properties until the ones that we have start being profitable.
Right, but it becomes kind of a stressful situation in a way, because it's like, okay, we have some critical decisions to make. Because here's the deal: if I do something and just say, okay, I think I can just get more money a week out, and I'm wrong, that means I'm not getting booked at all.
Well, can you do this? Can you?
If you're right and it's the price, then I'm not getting booked at all, and then I've made a big mistake.
Well, what if we took 2 properties and did that one strategy, and then 2 properties and did a different strategy?
That's an idea. We could do that.
And then we took 2 properties and just did nothing, but made no change at all.
That's an idea. I mean, we have that ability because we have that many properties.
And the new one that we've got coming up, we can't count that.
We got to do something with it. I mean, I have information that's not about, well, see, that's the other thing. I mean, it's by property, but I did break it out by property, and it didn't vary that much.
Yeah,
probably because a lot of our properties are similar, and they're in similar areas because they're for a particular target market, like we talked about earlier. So it's not like they're vastly different.
No, I mean, we've got some 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, and we've got the other ones are 2-bedroom, 2-bath homes. So, I mean, the square footage is quite similar in most of them. We've got one that's rather large.
We've got 2 that are larger than the other
Actually,
ones.
that's true. We do.
So our first 4, the 2 we did were 2 2s at around 1,000 square feet. And then the next 2 we did were 1,500 and 1,600 square feet. One was also a 2.5, and the other one was a 3-2.
Right.
So they're different properties, and they sleep different amount of people too. But even accounting for that, our average number is still 3.
Yeah, which is interesting.
It is.
Because now we can accommodate, well, in that 3 house, we have a house that's got 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and that accommodates 10 people.
Yes, but our average number of guests is still 3. That's
weird.
Now, for that particular property, I haven't gotten to that point yet to say what's the average number of guests at that property. I'm thinking it's more than 3.
I would think so too. I mean, just remembering.
I don't think so. I know it is. Just thinking about the reservations that we've had there.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I know the reservations that have come through there, and they've been large. I mean, they've been large parties.
Larger, yeah. There's not 10 though.
No.
But even so, I don't know. I'm just saying that this is the kind of data that I'm looking at. And
you got to think about this too, because we charge a extra person fee for anybody over 3 or any.
It depends on the property.
Party. Oh, it does?
Well, again, this is you talking and talking about something that I do. Like, so I'm just telling you that it's some of our properties, it's over 2 people, and some of our properties it's over 3 people. We charge an extra guest fee. So I feel like a place that sleeps 10, I want to charge for over 3 people. At a place that sleeps 6, I'm going to charge for over 2 people, because that's proportionate. So that's kind of my thought process, but they're not all the same.
Gotcha.
But we do charge extra guest fees, yes.
Well, I mean, we have to, because the more people that are there, the more linens they use, the more towels they use, the more amenities they use. Well,
yeah, I mean, you can say it that way, but you could just charge a a flat fee and not do that too.
Yeah, I guess you could.
And just charge as if 10 people are going to stay there.
But that's not fair, though. It just doesn't seem fair to me that...
I get what you're saying about fair, but that's not why we do it. We do it because as a business, we can advertise a price lower.
Oh, okay.
We don't do it because it's fair. I mean, you can tell the guests that all you want. That's all I'm going to tell them, because that makes sense to them.
Sure.
And it is true to a certain extent. Like, if you have more people staying there, they do use more water, they use more electric and everything else. But the business reason we do it is because, hey, I can display prices for 2 people, which means that they're going to click on my place. Everybody does that. That's good business sense. It's good marketing to do that.
Gotcha.
It's not about fairness, but yeah, I mean, there's
John's a meanie butt.
I'm not a meanie butt. I'm just telling you what's
on
real.
I'm just picking.
You know, this is real life. This is not me blowing stuff up your skirt. I mean, the reason I do it is because it's partially a marketing tactic, and it's not. You're not wrong. I mean, it is kind of unfair to charge somebody that's only bringing 2 people as if they're bringing 10. But there's also a marketing component of it that I can always advertise my price as if you're bringing 2 people. And
right.
If you bring 10, it's going to be more.
That's smart. No, that's smart. I get it.
It's more work to do it that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to look and see how many people come.
Well, yeah, you have to enforce that rule.
Right.
But we're not totally doing it just because we're benevolent people and we just want to be fair to everybody and everybody has lollipops. This is business, man. This is business kittens. And marketing. That's just the way you do it.
Ruthless.
Well, it's not ruthless. That's the way stuff is done. I mean, everybody, you expect it almost, right? You remember that place on the way to one of our places, there's that truck, remember?
Yeah.
And we were talking about that minimum advertised price.
Right. It's got the mattresses.
It's a mattress place.
Right.
And it's like mattresses $99.
Right.
Now, you know, if you go up in there and you want a king mattress, it's not going to be $99.
Right. So they're advertising.
You want a Beauty King mattress, it's not $99.
Right.
You know, the $99 mattress is like a twin, mattress.
Some name brand that you've never heard of.
Yes. But you know this. It's not necessarily deceptive. It's a marketing thing. Because the next guy overselling mattresses, if he's going to be like, well, I'm just going to like charge based on people who are going to get king mattresses, he's going to be advertising mattresses for like $1,500.
Right.
Which place are you going to shop first? I'm at least going to go to the $99 place and see if I can find something that works for me.
Yeah. So I'm just now getting into the marketing mindset, right?
Yeah. See, that's what you've been doing.
Right.
We were talking about marketing earlier this morning.
Right. So now I know absolutely nothing about marketing.
Really? You know that.
I do. I mean,
you have no interest in marketing. That's your problem.
I don't care to know about marketing. I just have to know because I'm going to be the one that's going to be doing it.
Well, that's part of what we're listening to today. I mean, that's what I was just describing is marketing. It's marketing in a kind of a different way, but it's what prices do you display? What pictures do you show? Who's your target market? I mean, you have to market as a business. Generating leads and sales is part of it, right? And so we were just talking about that this morning. This is kind of like way off the topic of what we were talking about earlier. But we were talking about, hey, how do we get away from the platform so much? Because again, this data comes from Airbnb specifically. How do we get away from the platforms? How do we become more of a brand and a business and that kind of thing? Because, on Airbnb, you're really kind of just building Airbnb's brand. It's not helping you a whole lot. It's a way to acquire customers that you can then retarget, and then they can come back and stay with you and book direct. That's where we're going.
Yeah, that's the long-term goal, right?
But Wendy's like, I got to get bodies in beds, man.
I gotta get bodies in beds.
Bodies in beds.
So that's what I'm educating myself on now is how to get bodies in beds.
Yeah. So maybe we can do the next podcast on how we're doing our marketing and how we're working on that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it
that's
goes.
something we definitely need to work on next.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be now once we've got this new units that we're setting up next weekend, I won't have anything to do. I mean, once
we got to stop, right?
Because now
Wendy's like, I just want to do the decorating and
now
get
John won't let me go get any more units and pretty places to decorate. So now I got to find something else to do. And what am I going to do with myself? Well, we got to get bodies in bed. So Wendy's going to go out marketing.
Well, that's your motivation, because
that's
if we can get the
units
that we have,
I can go get another unit.
Very well to where like we need more units. Then you can go do your thing.
I can. And
so that could be your motivation. But meanwhile, I'm looking at data and information.
Catching candles.
Which are two different things. Trying to figure out what adjustments do we need to make as the CEO, right? Like, what adjustments do we need to make in maybe pricing? Maybe I need to do something like, restrict bookings to a certain number of days out. Right? Like, I don't want somebody 30 days out booking a 2-night stay.
Yeah, that would suck, because then if somebody wanted to stay longer, they couldn't.
That's right. That does happen. So if somebody books a weekend, that means that I have to now find somebody that wants to book a Monday through Friday.
Right.
And if somebody wanted to book 2 weeks, I'm not even going to show up because there's some person in the middle taking 2 days. So I'm starting to think about things like that. If my average stay is 3 nights anyway, and people don't book till 2 weeks out, then maybe I need to change my settings so that, hey, you can't book anything less than 5 nights more than a week out. That's what I was thinking today.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. We should try that.
Because I don't want somebody, because it's obviously it's 60% of them are within a week, but that means there's 40% of them that book outside that week, and they're still only booking 2 nights. And is that preventing me from getting longer bookings?
Right.
At a higher price?
Right.
That's the kind of thing I'm looking at informationally to say, what's the information telling me? What's the data that I've turned in information now telling me that I can make a decision that might make a difference in my profitability in my business? And those are the kind of things we're looking at now.
Well, stay tuned to the next exciting episode when we tell you what has worked and what. Well, I guess it's going to be a little while.
I don't know that by the next episode.
It's going to be a little while before we know that. But we can tell you what strategy
this podcast
we've
started with us
chosen.
saying, hey, here's our journey and here's what we're working on. Here's what we're thinking now. And that's what we were just thinking about today. That's the conversation we were having.
Yeah. So
now everybody knows, and you can write us and tell us what we're doing wrong.
There you go. I think people should do that. I think if you have an idea of a strategy that we should use, email us. Email us at info@thecashflowcouple.com. info@thecashflowcouple.com. We also have Facebook at The Cashflow Couple. And we read all these messages. Okay, John reads all these messages.
Why is it that John does everything except for like design and acquiring units?
I do some other stuff.
You do. I'm just picking on you.
I do some other stuff.
I'm just picking on you.
I can't remember what it is right now, but I'm sure I do.
Well, we have these conversations in the garage, obviously. So it's not like I'm sitting out here by myself.
So let us know. We want to hear from you. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week.